Okay, I think we're on, aren't we? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yep, right. Three things I wanted.
I'm just waiting.
Oh, okay.
We're live.
Wow, we're live now. God, this is dramatic. All right, the three things I wanted to talk about today. The first one is an article we've just put up, and I'm introducing that, of course, as the first part of this. And in the article, there's something quite symptomatic of where modern thinking, modern education, modern science, modern archaeology sits today. This is an article about a place called Mojo, which the white fellas call Point Richard. And there's a midden there. And in that midden, there's charcoal, there are rocks that cracked through the heating, and there's stacks of shells. And normally anyone would say that's a midden. Well, this time people are arguing, saying it can't be a midden. And as somebody said, if it wasn't for the age, I think it was Dr. Sherwood, no one would question it. In fact, at one stage he made a comment about the fact the archaeologist said, don't tell us the age of this and we'll call it a midden. But once you do, we won't. And what it's come down to is this. Okay, here's the trick, the midden. Jim Bowler, who did work on this place for about the last 10 years on and off with Dr. Sherwood and some others, quite a few others, put up a date 3 years ago of 90,000 years and said, I don't believe it. He said, the science is right, but I just can't handle this date. I'm just not going to be part of it. I need to see more. Well, he's probably forgotten that in 1983, he and Gurdip Singh and Peter Owendyke did some work on a core example extraction in Great Barrier Reef that dated 183,000 years. And they found a massive increase in charcoal, and they all signed off saying this was evidence of humans 183,000 years ago. Well, I could see why most academics would forget they signed off on that, because it's not a good thing to sign on. Anyway, what's come out of this one is more interesting. What we've got is we've got quite a few academics, Sherwood and Bowler, who are saying this is absolutely, despite what Bowler calls a sleepless nights, he's going to bite the bullet and tell people, man, there were people here down the bottom of Victoria 120,000 years ago. Which meant if they came from Africa, they were supposed to start at the top and edge their way down over 25, 30,000 years. It means they got up to top at 150,000 years. Well, no one's ever claimed that anywhere, and they wouldn't claim it because they don't think that at that stage Homo sapiens had the ability to make boats that could take 20 people across the ocean for 100 kilometres, because that's what we need here. That's just not part of the narrative for early hominids and Homo sapiens sapiens. It's not there. 75 they can squeeze in. They can't double it and throw it back further. So it's a major issue, a big issue. So, but there are people who are responding. And their responses are twofold. Number one, as a gentleman by the name of McNiven says, this is all down to the fact that birdies did it. And what the birdies did was they, instead of dining where they eat or taking the food back to their nest, which is what we all thought they did, no they don't. They pick up their shells and they take all this and they go to one place. And there they dine, and when they're finished they stack the shells like humans would. Mind you, they said it was a seabird, but they didn't give us the exact name of the seabird, because if they did, we could watch that seabird and find out that no seabird's ever done that. No one's ever done it in the past. No one's ever proposed a seabird's ever done it in the past until now, anywhere in the world. But it's been proposed now because it has to be. Because they can't understand that. But more to the point, you've got to think about this. It goes further. Not only did the birdies do it, we still have the issue of the rocks that are in the middle of this midden, which is what they use to cook with. The fact that they're blackened and they're cracked, and that creates intense heat. Well, we really can't say that the birdies then cooked it, can we? That's a little bit tricky for their web feed. So what they've said there was they've come up with a new idea. What they said was massive bushfires had to be repeated once, have come down off the mountains there and through the trees, and then they've ignited the sand and ran along to the rock platform, and then ignited the rock platform, and then the whole of the platform and the sand and the beach has caught alight, and it's become that intense the rocks have cracked. In the last bushfire season in Australia, I remember pictures of many, many people fleeing to the beaches. Not because they thought they were going to catch a light, it's because they knew they wouldn't. But apparently 120,000 years ago things were different. 120,000 years ago, according to mainstream experts who are denying this, some birdies made the actual midden, dined and then cleaned up and stacked them all up, and then they put rocks in the centre. I don't know why they did that, they just did that for some reason anyway. The rocks were in the middle there, and then lo and behold, these bushfires came through, and when they got onto the beach they just ignited and blew up everywhere, and that repeated event then caused what we see today. Or it was done by humans 125,000 years ago, at least. That's a minimum age, not a maximum age, minimum age. And that date, that no one's arguing with, you've got to remember that. The date is rock solid. It's the how that's an issue. So you've got three choices. Mainstream will tell you to dismiss this and stick with the birdies and the bushfire. Common sense, intelligence and rational thinking would say forget the birds, forget the bushfire, think about the people. But then that changes the whole narrative. That means they're here at least twice as long as they said yesterday. And that looks pretty bad for a lot of people. So I think it's best we just forget about that one. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it will be forgotten. I mean, it's been out for quite some time now. This was just a new paper Evan gave me. And in that, there's also a second paper about archaeological. And in it is what I believe is absolute proof to what we wrote in our last article about the fact that archaeological is not a mine, it's not an ore, it is a combination of elements that have been put together in a laboratory and made specifically tailor-made for each of the rings we've got. Now it's interesting because in this particular account we see the name of this particular paper that Evan's found me, and I've written about those two together. We find the name Cadmus, who the Greeks reckon invented archaeological. Not smelted, not mined, not dug, but invented. And further on in that same narrative from a paper we didn't write, someone else did, it talks about Cadmus creating archaeological. Well, miners don't create. They take something from the ground that's there. They don't create something new. That happens in a laboratory or with a magician. It doesn't happen with a shovel in a hole. That's just not what happens there. So what we're finding, that our previous article about the rings has been verified by this new article, a scientific article about the fact the archaeological is unlike anything found anywhere else in the world, and they make a very, very strong relationship between that and the mythical place of Atlantis. So our article is primarily about science, again, and we like to get back to that a fair bit, and the fact that science is proving exactly what we said in every shape and form. And of course that leads up to the second part of this, which is our presentation we're doing. The next one is called Carrion Calling, and it's about what I believe and what Evan believes and a lot of us believe is to be one of the 5 Australian sites that are portals or ley lines, that when Uluru is turned on, then those sites then are turned on, and then that creates the trip switch that runs around the world. Well, according to the elders I'm speaking on behalf of, I've got feedback there that when I wrote earlier that I felt that Carrion was being desecrated, which it is, bulldozers have been there to destroy the land. Some of that bush has been burnt off, and there's an intention to make a 70-house subdivision, so that's all on the cards. They believe that could have an impact on the ley line. So for that reason, and quite a few others, this one's about Carrion, and it's what we've done here is you're going to watch a couple of, it seems a bit like you're watching Bondi Rescues in the bush, because Harry's from Bondi Rescue is going to take himself, his wife and his son to Carrion, to the glyphs, to some other sacred sites, and to be given a rock ceremony, which I was involved in. And this one's going to be different because we're going to have basically we're going to have an introduction with that out on country, and you get to see the area we're talking about. I think it's really important you do that. And at the end, we've got about another 40 minutes at the finish, which is another film that Sean's done. One at the start, one at the finish. And in between that, we're going to talk a fair bit, and we're lucky. We have Arnie Minnie Mace, and this is going to be the first time she speaks on this presentation. She's coming up later on in the year, the last presentation before December 21. But here, she's going to talk about the first time she went to Carrion. And you're going to hear what Arnie Minnie Mace, an original elder, has to say about Carrion. Then Nina's going to give you an insight into Arnie Bev, the last full descent Darwinian elder, what she thought about that site. And honestly, isn't that the end of it? You've got the first original elder who rediscovered it, and you've got the elder who was there all the time and looked after it. Shouldn't their word be the final word on this? After all, it is an original place. It is an original artefact, and it belongs to them. Why is it we keep sending people out into the field? I mean, look what's happened now. We sent some people out to the field at Mojo, and half of them say, oh, birdies did it, and it was a bushfire, and the other half say, no, blackfellas did it. See, even when it's obvious what the answer is, when it's so damn obvious you have to make up a stupid lie to cover it, do you know what? That stupid lie will prevail, and what those other men said who were correct, that'll be forgotten. And we'll just dismiss it as a maybe. It could be this and it could be that. And because it's a could be, it's not definite, therefore we don't talk about it anymore. Well, this presentation we're going to talk about Carrion, and of course we're going to talk about the prophecy and the change, and that's the only thing we repeat ourselves on. We're going to be doing all of the artefact around here that screams out to Egypt. See, I want to give people, and Evan and I will give you a context, a base upon which that site is founded. You shouldn't ever look at one site and say that I can see something. You can see a bit. You have to look at all the sites, then you look at the one site, and then you see more, because you see the interrelationship to begin with. Well, when people talk about the glyphs, they don't talk about the second set of glyphs, do they? No, because they don't know about it, and we found it, and we've shown it to you, and we'll show you again. They don't talk about the shaft, the 10-metre shaft. They don't talk about the artefacts Auntie Minnie gave me, one of which has got 1/4, a metal content that has not been identified anywhere on the periodic table and doesn't belong on this planet. And that comes from one of the top laboratories in Australia. And the academics repeated and mentioned this many times to me. When are people going to start talking about that? That was found at Carrion, at the glyphs. But of course the glyphs are fake, so that's probably fake too, isn't it? Well, that's the problem. We want to try and show people in this particular story why this place should be protected, and why the subdivisions have to stop somewhere, and surely this is the place they have to stop. And if they don't stop there, well, blow up you can gorge. Oh, you have. That's right, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's the same old thing, isn't it? Well, somewhere in the line's got to be drawn, and I think this is where it should be drawn, so that's what we're going to try and present. And to finish off, I just want to discuss something Evan was telling me recently, because as a lot of people know, we get attacked by everybody, and we have done for quite some time. I have numerous letters from the government threatening to put me in jail, and Evan and I have a sort of tally count of death threats and curses. And Evan is actually in front by 2 at the moment, 9-7. It's quite interesting. Recently, Evan's been cursed, not me. That's another one of his alone. Someone said they're going to kill him. That's after they killed Jake, apparently. Jake Casso, I don't know how they all comes together, but Evan stopped this guy from swearing and said you can't swear at people, and then the elder then said I'm going to kill you for doing that. Anyway, my point is some of his friends have come in and said, no, it's your fault, Evan. You've got to give out love and chakras and good wishes to these people, and they'll soon change. Can I just make a point to those people who believe that? When you jump into a vat with boiling hot water, you're going to get burnt. You can't miss it. You can give it love, you can give it peace, you can give it everything you want. You can throw flowers on the water first, but you're still going to get burnt. We're competing against the liars in authority at every level. Why has the government threatened on numerous occasions to put me in jail and made me write untold letters in response to things I didn't do, and say it time after time after time, and been doing it for years? In fact, we have a massive folder. Because we upset the government. We just don't upset the government. We upset a lot of people. A lot of elders believe we shouldn't put this out. And people know that other elders have given us permission to do that. And each of those ones have tried to kill us in different ways. Now, there's no way when someone's trying to kill you or trying to lock you up in jail, you can write back and say, I love you, I care for you, and I'm going to pray for you. It won't work. Because they don't use those words anymore, and we're actually in a battle. And this, you've got to understand that this is a battle between good and evil, between the truth and lies, and it comes to culmination on the 21st of December, when the judgment is handed out. The judge and the jury will be there on that day, and each person will make their karma, will make that decision for them. But in the meantime, they're going to try and stop this. There are people and beings that are trying to stop all of this happening, And they're aware of the fact we're part of that. And I'm going to tell you now, I appreciate the fact that some people think this is the way to go. But when we're dealing with people like, we don't give them love and kisses, but we don't give them darts and poisons. We give them nothing. We just move on. But we don't say to ourselves, that person who just threatened to kill me 3 times, well, I'm going to give them a gift, and I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to give them love, and I know one day soon they'll change. Well, this is the point. In this time of change, people are picking their own change and picking their own destiny. And because the Schumann resonance is peaking, it's getting us ready for this change that happens after, if we can find the crystals, if they get turned on. In the meantime, people are now ebbing towards where they really are. And the ones who have negative thoughts are becoming more negative. And the ones with more positive thoughts are becoming more positive. There is a gap, a schism that's appearing. And the people on one side that are getting angrier, nothing we can do. And I can tell you that now. You can give them as much love and you can give them as many good wishes as you want. It's up to each individual now. What we do on the outside to other people doesn't count anymore. So please don't insult Evan by telling him because someone says, I'm going to kill you. The way to deal with this is to say, I love you in return. We don't do that. And we don't say, I hate you in return. We say nothing in return and move on. But please don't coach us, because if you aren't doing this, it's because you're not upsetting these people and you don't have to deal with it. We do. We don't give them love. We don't give them hate. We give them nothing. And they'll make their own judgment on themselves, I know that. So therefore, I don't even feel annoyed by them. I don't get angry with them. I just think whatever. So please don't coach us about telling us to try and love our enemies. We don't hate our enemies. We don't love them. We give them nothing in return. If they say bad things about them, let them do that. That's their problem, not ours. Really, what we do know is if we say nothing in return, we're fine. So please don't upset that silence by then getting on the back of Evan to tell him, oh no, you've brought this on yourself. That's a cop-out. Right now, everyone brings their destiny upon themselves. No one else enforces on anyone. Honestly, that's not correct. Each person is getting to them their fair amount of what they need. It's not from other people, it's what they need themselves. Other people can't do that anymore. But anyway, look, come and join us on our online conference. It's on this Sunday. Harry's, you're gonna find him an incredible human being, and he is. He really is getting this part about how people in the future, how men will be in the future. They'll be warriors, but with a smile on their face and real compassion in their heart. That's the way of the future. Okay, until next time, and hopefully we'll see you at our online conference, and I'll try and turn this off.